All right, everyone, buckle up because today we're diving headfirst into some seriously fascinating stuff. We're cracking open a text called Anurag Sagar, Ocean of Love. And let me tell you, this ocean, it's got some really interesting currents, like, whoa. So picture this, the future's unfolding, things are shifting, and boom, individuals start popping up, claiming to have all these, deep spiritual insights. They're like, hey, everyone, follow me to enlightenment. No. These are the future messengers that the Anurag Sagar talks about.
And what I find so fascinating is the text doesn't just say, watch out for these guys. It actually goes into the nitty-gritty of their teachings, what makes them so alluring, but also, and this is key, where the pitfalls lie, like a spiritual heads up, you know what I mean?
Okay, so it's not enough to just have good vibes. We've got to be discerning too. So tell me more. Who are these messengers?
Well, the text highlights four in particular, Ram, Kurambh, Jay, and Vijay. But for today, we're going to zero in on Ram and Kurambh because, the text goes into a lot of detail about their whole deal.
Yeah, let's dive into that. Lead the way. I'm ready.
All right, so these messengers, they're kind of sneaky. They're depicted as, presenting these true things. But there's a twist. The text seems particularly concerned about how they might actually use these truths to mislead people, often through, get this, really captivating but ultimately distorted teachings.
Sneaky. That's kind of like that saying, a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing. Or, in this case, it's more like a half-truth presented really, really well is a powerful thing. So let's start with Ramh. What's his deal?
Okay, picture this. Ramh sets up shop in Kalinjar Garh, which, if you don't know, is this historic fort in India. And he, quickly gains a following. People who were initially skeptical, they become devoted followers.
Okay, this guy's got some serious charisma. That's intriguing, but also a little alarm bell for me, What were his teachings like?
All right, so this is where it gets really, really interesting. Ramh claims to be controlled by the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But, and this is key, he also claims that he will eventually, master these elements completely.
Wait, hold on. Controlled by, but also going to master? That seems a tad contradictory, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a total paradox. And I think it points to a potential, misunderstanding of these spiritual teachings. See, the five elements, they're not just these external forces. They also represent, internal states of being. So when Ramh talks about mastering them, it's not about, controlling the weather or something.
Right.
It's about, this deep inner transformation.
Okay, so it's less about literal superpowers and more about, really mastering yourself.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, how many of his followers were caught up in that idea of, the magic tricks versus the genuine inner work. Was there anything else that stood out about Ramh's teachings?
Oh, yeah, totally. The text mentions that he was really into figures like Sat Purush and Kabir, who are often associated with, divine knowledge and liberation. But, and this is key, Ramh straight up rejects a figure known as Kal.
Okay, now I need to know more about this Kal character. Who is he, and why is it a big deal that Ramh is nope, not a fan?
So in the world of the Anurag Sagar, Kal is kind of portrayed as this force that keeps souls bound to the cycle of birth and death. It's often linked with illusion and the material world. Basically all the stuff that keeps us from seeing our true nature.
So if I'm understanding this right, by rejecting Kal, Ramh's essentially rejecting, the very things. A lot of spiritual seekers are actually trying to transcend. Talk about mixed messages.
Yeah, it definitely raises some serious red flags.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to, help people achieve liberation,
right,
why dismiss this concept that's, central to that very idea? It's like a teacher saying, yeah, we're going to learn how to read, but we're not going to bother with the alphabet.
It makes you wonder what Ramh was actually selling, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing about these messengers. Their teachings are often presented in this way that, sounds really profound on the surface.
Yeah.
But might actually lead people further away from, a genuine understanding.
So charisma plus a dash of, spiritual bypassing. Not a good look. All right, on to Kurambh. What's his story?
Okay, Kurambh, he sets up camp in Magadh in South Bihar, India. But he adopts the name Daniyadas. Probably, blend in. Seem more relatable,
Daniyadas, huh? Sounds like a spiritual influencer, rebranding for a new audience. What kind of teachings was he known for?
Well, this guy was all about the cosmos,
Okay.
sun, moon, lunar phases. He wove this whole cosmic tapestry into his teachings.
Okay, I get it. Everyone loves a bit of stargazing. But what was the deeper message there?
Well, he tapped into this this age-old fascination with the universe, the idea that these celestial bodies, they actually influence our lives. you know? And for people who are like seeking meaning, seeking guidance, it's a powerful hook.
Yeah, it's like saying, hey, I've got the cosmic cheat codes, right? Who wouldn't want those? But hold on, this is where I get a little lost. He's promoting this whole intricate system of astrology, right? But then also claims to have, like, knowledge that surpasses its limitations. Isn't that a bit like a chef saying, yeah, follow this recipe, but also I make it better without even looking at it?
It's a brilliant, albeit maybe a little manipulative tactic, right?
Yep.
By combining those contradictory elements, right? Promoting astrology while also claiming to transcend it, Kurambh creates this aura of mystique, this authority. Like he's saying, I'm not just an astrologer. My knowledge, it's on another level.
So it's like a double down on the spiritual ego then.
Exactly. And remember, the Anurag Sagar suggests that both Ramh and Kurambh, they present themselves as, having access to these true things. But they're kind of twisting those truths, using these captivating but ultimately misleading teachings to gain followers.
It's like they've found a way to bottle and sell spiritual ambition, that desire for those quick answers, that secret knowledge, maybe even a shortcut to enlightenment.
And that's incredibly seductive, especially for seekers who might be, new to a path or, feeling a bit lost.
Speaking of things that seem a bit off, there's this line in the text that really caught my eye. It seems to be like critical of people who claim that they can heal others using what it calls metaphysical powers.
Yeah, it's a fascinating critique, especially given how we're talking about these messengers as like potentially, deceptive figures. It's like the text is saying, be wary of anyone who claims to have, all the answers or the power to fix your life, especially if they're using spirituality as like a marketing tool.
It's like preying on people's vulnerabilities, their deepest desires for healing or solutions.
Totally. And this warning about healing through metaphysical powers, it's really closely tied to the text's broader message about what it calls black magic.
Okay, now we're getting into some intense territory. When I hear black magic, I think of like spells and curses, not necessarily, spiritual teachings.
Right. And it's important to remember that like the Anurag Sagar isn't, giving us a lecture on the ethics of, spellcraft or anything. It uses black magic more as like a metaphor for the potential misuse of spiritual knowledge, spiritual power. It's a cautionary tale about what can happen when these things are used for, selfish reasons or to manipulate others.
So it's less about condemning like specific practices and more about the intention behind them.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that spiritual knowledge, it's like any other form of power, right? It can be used for good or for ill. And just because someone says they're using it for good, it doesn't necessarily make it so.
It's like that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Exactly. The Anurag Sagar is reminding us that discernment is key. We have to be willing to look beyond the surface, question what we're being told, and check in with our own inner compass.
So it's not just about blindly following a charismatic teacher, but about cultivating our own inner authority, our own ability to figure out what's true for ourselves.
Absolutely. The text seems to suggest that genuine spiritual understanding comes from inner work, from developing a deep connection with your own wisdom and intuition. And that takes time, effort, and honestly, a bit of trial and error.
It's a journey, not a destination, as they say. But how do we navigate all the potential pitfalls along the way? I mean, Ramh and Kurambh, they sound pretty convincing. What are some red flags we can watch out for to make sure we're not being led astray?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And while there's no one-size-fits-all answer, the Anurag Sagar offers some really valuable clues. First and foremost, the text emphasizes looking beyond charisma and appearances. It's easy to be swept away by a charismatic teacher or dazzling spiritual claims, but true spiritual guidance often unfolds in more subtle, nuanced ways.
So don't be blinded by the spiritual bling.
Exactly. It's about paying attention to the substance of the teachings, the underlying message, and how it resonates with your own heart and mind. Does it spark genuine insight? Does it lead to more compassion, understanding, and a sense of interconnectedness? Or does it just feed your ego, that desire for specialness or spiritual superiority?
It's about trusting your gut feeling, that inner voice that tells you if something feels aligned or a little bit off.
And that's where the Anurag Sagar's emphasis on inner work comes in. It's about cultivating that connection with your own inner wisdom, your own internal bullshit detector, if you will. That's what will ultimately guide you towards teachings and practices that are genuinely beneficial.
So it's not just about blindly following any teacher, but about cultivating our own inner authority, our ability to discern truth from falsehood.
Exactly. And this process of inner cultivation, it often involves questioning, critical thinking, even challenging the teachings you encounter. The Anurag Sagar seems to encourage a healthy skepticism, reminding us that even teachings presented as absolute truth should be tested against our own experience and understanding.
It's about being an active participant in your own spiritual growth, not just a passive recipient of information.
Yes. And that active participation means seeking out multiple perspectives, comparing and contrasting different teachings, and always coming back to your own inner experience as the ultimate litmus test.
So in a way, these messengers, as flawed as they might be, serve as a reminder to approach spiritual seeking with both open hearts and discerning minds.
Precisely. They remind us that the path to genuine spiritual growth is rarely linear or without its challenges. But by cultivating discernment, self-awareness, and a deep connection with our inner wisdom, we can navigate those complexities and find our way to teachings that genuinely resonate with our deepest truth.
It's about remembering that the true journey is ultimately an inward one, a process of uncovering the wisdom and potential that resides within each of us.
Beautifully said. And it's a journey that requires courage, humility, and an unwavering commitment to truth-seeking, even when it challenges our preconceived notions or disrupts comfortable paradigms.
It's about embracing the unknown with both curiosity and caution, knowing that the path unfolds one step at a time. It's almost like the Anurag Sagar is kind of giving us this like sneak peek into the future of spirituality, showing us not just the potential pitfalls, but also these incredible opportunities for growth and transformation.
Absolutely. It's this powerful reminder that spiritual seeking, it's always evolving, right? It's always being shaped by the challenges and the insights of each era.
Which makes me wonder, like, what other fascinating messengers and teachings are kind of out there,
Right.
just waiting for us in those uncharted waters of the future?
Right. That's the beauty of it all, isn't it? The journey, like spiritual exploration, it's never truly over. There's always more to discover, more to understand, and more to embody.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into this world of Ramh and Kurambh with their like captivating teachings, but also kind of those hidden agendas, I can't help but wonder, what if these messengers aren't just feathers from the future? What if they actually represent like these archetypes, these patterns of spiritual seduction that have like always existed, and they just keep popping up in different forms throughout history?
That's a really, really insightful observation. And you know what? It speaks to that, like that timeless wisdom that's embedded within the Anurag Sagar. By presenting these messengers in this context of the future, the text kind of invites us to examine not only the potential pitfalls of spiritual seeking in times to come, but also to recognize how these patterns might actually be playing out in our own lives, like right now.
It's like a call to awareness, right? To really like examine the motivations and the underlying beliefs that are shaping our own spiritual journeys.
Precisely. It's a reminder that the true work of spiritual growth, it's this ongoing process of self-reflection, of discernment, and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions and beliefs, even when it's uncomfortable.
So if we encounter teachings that are like promising these quick fixes, or supernatural powers, or even spiritual superiority, it might be wise to kind of approach those teachings with a healthy dose of skepticism, and a deep connection to our own inner guidance.
Beautifully said. And ultimately, the Anurag Sagar reminds us that the true measure of spiritual growth, it doesn't lie in like these outward displays of power or even rigid adherence to dogma, but in the depths of our compassion, our capacity for love, and our unwavering commitment to living in alignment with our highest truth.
So as we navigate this vast and ever-changing landscape of spiritual seeking, let's remember to approach it all with open hearts, but also discerning minds and an unshakable connection to that wisdom that resides within each of us.
Indeed. And let us never underestimate that transformative power of love, the very essence of the Anurag Sagar itself, to guide us on our journey toward genuine spiritual awakening and liberation.